We can hear you fine. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Say, Marja, you can turn off the screen share for a moment for the introduction. Patrick is here too. Okay. Okay, so I think we're gonna start, everybody. So I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight. A lot of people in the room, we don't even have enough chairs, and I think we're going to max out our Zoom seats, which is great. I want to thank the Charles River Watershed Association, the Mystic River Watershed Association, Green Cambridge, the other steering committee members of Save the Alewife Brook, and especially all the supporters for coming out tonight, who are in favor of ending sewage pollution in our rivers and brooks. So my name is Kristen Anderson, and I am here tonight because Alewife Brook flooded into my home multiple times. Sewage, floodwater came in through the back door. I was exposed to it. My neighbors were exposed to it. We had no idea what was in the water, and we got sick. And it was disgusting, and it included terrible cramps, fevers, bloody diarrhea. And I don't want this happening to anybody else. So
he will be held accountable to reduction of call. Thank you tonight, the man.
Thank you. So it was a horrifying experience, and it shouldn't happen to folks who live near Alewife Brook, who use our public parks and bike paths near our rivers, and it shouldn't happen to folks who are boating in the Mystic or Charles Rivers. This is an environmental justice issue. If you want to know where the environmental justice populations live, just find MWRA's combined sewer overflow outfalls on a map. And near those CSO outfalls is where you will find environmental justice populations. And these CSOs are making people sick. There's an opportunity now to eliminate sewage in the Alewife, Mystic, and Charles. Massachusetts Water Resources Authority is under court order to fix the problem, and it has the funding available to eliminate sewage pollution in our rivers. But MWRA leadership is pushing things in the wrong direction. We can fight this and win with people power. So thank you again for everyone who's here today. We already have enormous public support for ending sewage pollution. We have unanimous support at Cambridge and Somerville City Council. We have unanimous support at Arlington Town Hall, and our state representatives, some of whom I think they're all here tonight, either in person or on Zoom. Dave Rogers, Steve Owens, Sean Garbely, they support this, and we have support from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. We're going to paste a link in the chat for a petition that I'd like everybody who's on Zoom to sign. I think everybody in the room has already signed the petition here tonight. So I think I can now pass the meeting over to Julie Wood from Charles River Watershed Association. There you are.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
All right. All right, good evening, everyone. It is so wonderful to see so many of you here and online, taking time out of your Sunday, because you care so much about this important issue. Marja, do you mind pulling up my slides? Hello, online folks. We can see you a little better right now. All right, excellent. As the slides come on board, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Julie Wood. I'm the Climate Resilience Director at Charles River Watershed Association. I am here with my colleague, our director, Emily Norton, in the back. Sorry, she just took a bite. I am going to be talking about combined sewer overflows in the Charles, which also affects Cambridge in addition to the Alewife and the Mystic. It is wonderful working with the folks at Save the Alewife Alewife Brook, and thanks to Kristen and team for putting this wonderful event on tonight. Next slide. That's me. Thanks for that great event. Next slide. Kristen referenced this. We have been disappointed for too long with what's going on with these combined sewer overflows. Dumping untreated sewage into our environment, into our rivers, and ultimately right back into our houses and our bodies is unacceptable and illegal. So the Clean Water Act essentially should not allow this, is what's dictating this process for this cleanup. And we need to hold those who are in charge's feet through the fire until this is done, until promises are delivered, and until acceptable water quality and public health is available to all of us. Next slide. These are the 10 combined sewer overflows in the Charles. 3 of them are on the north side of the river in Cambridge. I'll get into those a little bit more as we go, but just to let you know, if you're more familiar with the Alewife and the Mystic, this is what we're looking at in the Charles. Next slide. Contact with sewage makes you sick. This is probably self-explanatory. There's a reason we treat sewage in a huge deer island and we don't just dump it into our environment. Others are going to talk a little bit more about this, and Kristen already referenced her devastating personal experience with this. So I will keep going. Next slide. What is a combined sewer overflow? I think many of you know, but if you're new to the party, welcome, and want to make sure we're all on the same page. Combined sewers are an older form of sewage systems where the rainwater from the streets and the sewage from our homes and businesses go into the same pipe. Under normal conditions, this can generally be okay. It all ends up at Deer Island. It all gets its 3-step treatment that it needs, and we're fine. The problem is when it rains. We get too much of that rainwater runoff into the pipe system. The pipes have a limited capacity, and they overflow. To prevent it from overflowing into our houses and into our streets, it goes into our rivers and streams like the Alewife Brook. So dry weather conditions, everything going to Deer Island. Wet weather, that's where we see our overflows. These are outdated types of systems. Next slide. Current systems have 2 separate pipe systems. And if you guys, many of you I know live in Cambridge, the city is working to separate various neighborhoods. So you may have even seen that construction, some of that construction happening. Next slide. We can also add green stormwater infrastructure. This is infrastructure that uses plants and soil microbes to clean the water instead of just dumping it straight out into the river in a separated system or holds it up on the surface of the land. Doesn't cause those pipe capacity to overflow. Uses the surface of the land for storage, and then you can reduce overflows as well. Next slide. Sorry, this is getting quite washed out here. This is available on the City of Cambridge website, though. It's the map of where the combined sewer overflow areas drain. I think I have a few zoom ins. It's essentially 2 sections of Cambridge. Oh, next slide. Yeah, thank you. It's actually 2 sections of Cambridge that run into the Charles for the combined systems. Around Harvard Square, north along Mass Ave into Porter, west along Rattle Street. That's the first area to the west. And then next slide, the other area to the east is the larger one here, the Port, Inman Square, all the way into Kendall Square, really. So those are the combined sewer areas where you're going to have that water go into the combined system. Next slide. What we've seen in the Charles is that combined sewer overflows are getting worse. It is an unfortunate fact of climate change in our area that rainfall patterns are changing, and the way they're changing is inducing more combined sewer overflows. So we're seeing more intense storms. That means a lot of rain in a short amount of time. So we can have overflows after a 30-minute rainstorm. You're like, did it even rain? And yet you're getting these emails, yeah, that you have an overflow. That's because we're getting just too much rain in too short amount of time. And we're getting more larger storms. So maybe back in the day when I was younger, you'd have 1 inch of rain spread out over 12 hours. Now that 1 inch of rain is spread out over 1 hour, more intense, larger storms causing these combined sewer overflows. Currently, there are limits on what's supposed to go into these water bodies. In the Charles, it is 13 million gallons per year. They use something called a typical year. This is just an imaginary theoretical rainfall year that they use to measure that. So 13 million gallons in a typical year, again, if there is such a thing, but that's how they measure it, is what's allowed. This is what we see actually happen. So this is currently what's allowed. This is actually what's happening. So the process we're talking about today is to set a new limit. Just remember this, the limit is somewhat imaginary. We also need to think about what's actually going to happen when this limit gets set. So these darker, and again, sorry, it's a little bright for these close colors, but the darker lines, that's what we actually see and what we've actually seen these last few years. Now, MWRA and the partners in Somerville and Cambridge recently put out a plan for how they were going to change things in the coming decade. So, and next slide. They thought the limit should go up. This was their plan. This was their plan. I'm not going to talk all the details of this. The other speakers are going to get into it more, but this was their plan. Let's let more go in. The climate is changing. We can't keep up. We just got to let more sewage go in there. And that's why we're here. That's why we're talking about this. Next slide. So I'm going to go in a few more slides about this plan. Long-term control plan, that's what any combined sewer overflow owner in the country has to put forward. This is not unique to us. This is a national thing. What are we going to do in the next 2-3 decades to address this problem? With the understanding, we are working to end this problem. Not with the understanding that we are working to make this problem worse. So I think that's where we really need to just push MWRA on this. So this draft updated plan is what they are working on now, what we are expecting. Next slide. The main decision point in this plan is what is going to be their new level of control or what is going to be that new limit. So this level of control decision is a really key decision point of this plan. They had basically 5 options. A is the worst option, and D and E are controlling to the maximum extent possible. In our opinion, the best options. They went with A. They went with A. Next slide. I think that shows that, highlights it. They went with A. Yeah, so there's the puke emojis for you there. Just to really rub it all in. So we mobilized people power, just like Kristen said. Mobilized, said no, unacceptable, and they pushed it off for now, at least. We're waiting to hear what the exact next steps are, but we were successful in at least delaying that. Next slide. I already previewed this, but that's what would have led to a higher limit for overflows in the Charles, from that 13 million up to 30 million gallons per year. Next slide. I thought, but I won't spend a lot of time on this. We have a lot of speakers to come. I thought folks might be generally interested in what kind of solutions are there. So in the Charles, it's basically storage and some partial sewer separation for Cambridge would be one option. The other option I have later is a large tunnel, but that's essentially what they're looking at for Cambridge when it comes to the Charles system. Next slide. There's so many things that we see done on a national basis that MWRA is not looking at. They are extremely backward looking in developing this plan. They're not forward looking. They are looking at climate change. We will give them that credit, but they're not using newer tools that other cities are using and embracing. So these are just some of the things. They're also not doing a true cost and benefit analysis to really understand what are the true benefits of making these improvements. They're just looking at one solution, how much dollars does it cost, how much CSOs does it eliminate? When we all know that eliminating these CSOs have multiple benefits, public health, recreation, economic, all of that. Next slide. They did a great job in Boston. That's the other thing we need to keep in mind and remind them about, okay? The South Boston beaches are some of the cleanest urban beaches in the nation because they cleaned up the CSOs. They did a big tunnel. They invested in it, they paid for it, and now we're all getting the benefits of it. So we have done it and we can do it again. I think the next slide actually is the proposed big tunnel for the Charles. So this is the other second solution essentially for Cambridge, a very large tunnel that would run along the Charles. And these are big tunnels that store the water. Again, just hold it in place until it can go out to Deer Island so that you're not causing these overflows. Next slide. I am wrapping up, I promise. Please visit our website, cutthecrapcharles.org. It's right there. It's in your face. Check it out. You can take action. I think the next slide has a list of actions you can take. I know Kristen already sent some of these out, but we are trying to get as many people as are willing to get their voice heard, tell our leaders that this is really important. So please take action. Yes, there's David in the poop emoji costume. And last slide, I think is just my contact info, but with that, all right, yes. And with that, I will turn it over to Andy online.
Okay,
Right.
Andy, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you so much, Marja, for doing the slide. Bring this to you over here. You'll have to slide off.
Thank you, everyone. Is this making its way, my sound making its way to you? Great. I am Andy Criseno, Water Quality Program Manager at the Mystic River Watershed Association. And I know that are unavoidably at a distance.
Calculations. Well, this will help our balance sheets and our business might expand.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. But I know that at least two of my colleagues are in the room as well. Our Executive Director, Patrick Heron, and our Stormwater Projects Manager, Marja Copeland. Julie covered so much ground that I'm probably inevitably going to do some repetition, but I'm going to come at it, I think, from a couple of different angles and add a little bit to this overall infrastructure and political picture that Julie drew. So first of all, just to, again, kind of zoom in on the scale of these releases, the sheer amount of pollution that's going into these rivers from combined sewer overflows. On the left, on the right shows all remaining combined sewer overflows in Greater Boston. The Charles River gets the largest partially treated CSOs by a considerable margin, but the Mystic is not super far behind. And though the absolute numbers in Alewife Brook are lower, I want to note two things about this. One is that it's a much smaller stream. So that, for instance, in the year depicted here, which is 2023, Alewife Brook received more than 25 million gallons of CSO discharge, which we sort of back of the envelope computed that how much water is that is hard to visualize, but it's the amount of water that flows past any given point in Alewife Brook in normal weather, without rain, in 3 days. It's that much water. I'll also note that in Alewife Brook, the reason the bars are red in Alewife Brook is that Alewife is the scene of the largest completely untreated CSO discharges in any river or stream in Greater Boston. So one mitigation that you can do and that has been implemented in the Mystic and in the Charles is that you can, before this water which is a mixture of rainwater and sewage straight from our toilets, before it reaches the river, you dump bleach in it and then dechlorinate and try to kill the pathogens. But that's the only treatment it gets. It's not at all full-fledged water treatment that we're used to at Deer Island that is obvious best practice. So, but Alewife Brook, the 25 plus million gallons that entered in 2023 received no treatment. There was no filter, no addition, nothing. Straight from, I happen to live in a CSO neighborhood in the Charles, but in Cambridge, but I can say straight from toilets to Alewife Brook, nothing impeded the flow of that material. So I think this is a really, it speaks to the urgency of the issue in general, but also at Alewife in particular. And as Julie noted, this is a sort of obscurely technical slide from an MWRA presentation, but the short version is that MWRA, by their own estimates, says that if we do nothing, right, business as usual, only projects that have been planned so far, if we do nothing, if we make no additional infrastructure investments, the total amount of CSO releases by 2050 will increase by a factor of 2 to 4. And that's because the patterns of precipitation are going to change because of climate change, as Julie described. So however bad the situation is today, if we do nothing, climate change will make it worse by a factor of up to 4. And as Julie mentioned, another aspect of the urgency of this is that CSOs turn out to be, like so many things, an environmental justice issue. There's actually excellent research by Dr. Nathan Sanders looking at the proximity of environmental justice communities to CSOs. And this graph, for instance, throughout the state of Massachusetts shows that watersheds, sub-watersheds, areas with 2 times as many of people of color have 4.4 times as much sewage discharge. This turns out to be true in the Alewife and other watersheds here. And as Julie mentioned, it's a public health issue. We know that people get sick even without direct. This is kind of an amazing and we think important fact. Epidemiological research shows that people who simply live in proximity to CSOs have a higher reported rate of acute illness than people who do not. So some of the tools for addressing CSOs are, as Julie mentioned, sewer separation, right? The picture on the right shows a system where sewage goes to the sewage treatment plant, all of it. Rainwater hits the road and goes to the river and never the twain shall meet, right? They're in separate pipe networks. It's the gold standard solution to this problem. Other tools in this toolbox include storage, as Julie mentioned, adding capacity. That is, what happens is that these pipes back up because they reach capacity. And so another option is adding conveyance, adding the ability to move water through the system. And as Julie mentioned, green stormwater infrastructure. And again, in two different ways, it becomes relevant to our conversation. And I know Green Cambridge is going to talk about green stormwater infrastructure. It can help by reducing the amount of stormwater that's entering into a combined system. That is, it's just reducing the amount of water that is potentially going to back up. But it also becomes, as a partner with sewer separation, a best practice for treating stormwater, that is water just from the streets. And the most photogenic, most ambitious, and kind of lauded example of this is the Alewife stormwater wetland pictured here. It's a kind of naive observer walking through would think of it as a park, a kind of a designed wetland. It's actually serving a function of filtering water that is coming off of roads in a 300-acre neighborhood in Cambridge, where that used to be a combined system, where the sewer systems were separated. So now they had stormwater not going to the Deer Island wastewater treatment plant anymore, rainwater from the streets. Now it goes directly to Alewife Brook, but is effectively slowed down and filtered through this, what has become an amenity in the city of Cambridge. So there are many co-benefits to progressive best practice solutions to this problem. Julie mentioned this a little bit, but I wanted to put a pin in this. This has been a long process. We're in the middle of something like a 4-year process where, happily and to their credit, the partners engineering these solutions, which are the City of Cambridge, City of Somerville, and MWRA, have kept us informed about the progress of their planning over the past 2 years. It has not been, I think, as transparent a process, I think this is understated, as we hoped it might be. It resulted in October and November of this plan being released, made public. And this is another view of the plan that Julie suggested. So this is a representation of in each of the watersheds. So in the Alewife, Charles, and Mystic River watersheds, the costs of the various classes of proposals they put forward. And in each case, and so they had developed many plans, they had put them into, into sort of conceptual design, shared them with us, and then picked in nearly every case, the least ambitious possible solution here. The y-axis on these graphs is costs. So there is an element to this that we do have to acknowledge, that as you become more ambitious here, the costs scale, the costs go up. But we absolutely think the investment is worth it. As Julie mentioned, and as Emily Norton at Charles River Watershed often says, that cleanup of Boston Harbor that was driven in very large part through the elimination of many, many CSOs in Boston. We were treating the river as as a way to convey sewage to the ocean. The cleanup of Boston Harbor is money considered expensive at the time. No one regrets the investment that the city of Boston has made in the cleanup of that Massachusetts has made in this cleanup of Boston Harbor. And we believe the same thing is true here. No one will regret the more ambitious levels of spending that are required to, we argue, make good on the promise of the Clean Water Act and on the promise of the cleanup of Boston Harbor. This is the last unwritten chapter, and we can't leave it. We can't just let this story trail off. We need to be ambitious and aim high. So we were able to, by advocacy and letter writing and mobilizing constituents, all of us together, everyone in that room and in a much larger community. When we saw these plans, we called them unacceptable and were able to persuade the Department of Environmental Protection to actually intercede in this process. This was going forward. A plan was about to be published on January 1st or on December 31st. And DEP, in reaction to all our advocacy, I think, said, no, it is unacceptable. You have to try harder. And we're now waiting for the next phase of this project. But I think our joint stance here is that we find these plans wholly inadequate. We find the process of public review that's led to this point, and that we hope that at least was outlined into the future, also inadequate. We want more transparency. We argued that the plans amount to giving up on the CSO problem in all streams. It's a feature of all these solutions, even the higher level ones, that they're not going to get rid of CSOs completely. They're not promising to do that. Even the 5 and 25-year levels of control, so-called, they're all leaving aspects of this system in place. So that under certain conditions, there will be CSO discharges into the future. And but the question is how much? And they picked, again, the lowest possible bar. All three rivers, we think, deserve more ambitious plans. We're calling for at least that 25-year level of control or complete sewer separation, a stance endorsed by the Cambridge City Council. And we demand that the streams not be downgraded officially to permanently allow CSOs. So that's sort of how we're thinking about the urgency of this issue, what the scale is in the Alewife and the Mystic and the Charles, and the position we are in as advocates now as we prepare for the next stage of this battle, which will come in the next year. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Green Cambridge, I believe.
We were muted. So there we go. Started.
Go. I am still Sarah Atkins, incoming executive director of Green Cambridge. I do have a bit of stage fright, so I'll be reading and looking and reading and looking. If you've seen me speak before, that is my usual. So first I want to thank everybody for being here, for caring about this problem. And we're really thrilled to be alongside community advocates and community members that want to end sewage pollution in the Alewife and across Boston permanently. Next slide. Okay. So since absorbing, can you hear me now? Okay. Since absorbing the Friends of Alewife Reservation in 2019, we have incorporated their mission into our work. We engage in stewardship of the Alewife Reservation and promote public health, sustainable land and resource usage, biodiversity, and climate resilience in the Alewife District. Green Cambridge staff are involved in two types of programmatic work, stewardship and advocacy. We run community volunteer days, corporate volunteer events, and partner with local schools to bring people into relationship with this park, which is Cambridge's only urban wild. We are also in the process of creating a youth stewardship program called Restore For, which will model our current youth program called Canopy Crew, which I see some tree recipients here, so thank you. As a part of this work, we are acquiring a permit to conduct invasive plant management and native plant restoration in the entirety of the Cambridge portion of the reservation. The second part of our work in the Alewife is our advocacy. Next slide, please. So we kicked off our advocacy with a 3-year partnership with the National Park Service that culminated in the Alewife District Community Health Action Plan. This process allowed us to take stock of the Alewife District and a myriad of challenges that it faces, as well as identify opportunities to improve environmental and public health conditions. Through that, we identified 3 main areas which guide our work in the Alewife. 1 is advancing environmental justice and community stewardship. 2 is addressing climate change and wetland integrity, and 3 is improving access. The QR code there in the corner will bring you to the full report, but you can also find it on our website under our Alewife Reservation programmatic page. One of the primary opportunities that we identified that can impact all 3 of these focus areas is the upcoming MBTA station redevelopment. So this site is currently an unused and crumbling parking garage, which I'm sure many of you have seen, and it blocks visual and physical access to the reservation. A thoughtfully designed redevelopment could transform the Alewife District into a thriving regional transportation hub and improve access to Cambridge's only urban wild. The redevelopment is also an opportunity to address the CSOs, in particular CAM 401A. As the stewards of the Alewife Reservation and as direct property abutters, Green Cambridge is uniquely positioned to advocate for the redevelopment to include community voices and priorities. Next slide, please. So here's a little map. Our property is the one in yellow, and then the 2 CSO outfalls that we're going to discuss are in red. As you can see, we're direct abutters to the station and between the 2 CSO outfalls. The property and our work in the Alewife have given us an inside view of the ongoing pollution that Alewife Brook and the reservation as a whole face as a result of the CSOs. But property aside, why do we care? The Alewife District, in particular the community that we're in right now, is an environmental justice community facing multiple forms of environmental harms, including a heat island effect from low canopy cover, air pollution from the come and go traffic onto Route 2, and flooding. The flooding becomes a unique problem for this community because of the CSOs, which dump millions of gallons of raw sewage into the brook year after year, which then finds its way into the land, onto the walkways, and into homes. Stewardship of the land aids in hydrology and resiliency, but CSO mitigation requires structured and consistent advocacy. Next slide, please. With that, we've been engaged in a long-term advocacy project to ensure that the MBTA station redevelopment advances community goals for the Alewife District and reservation. Our first step was to work with community groups to identify priority areas that the station could address. The 3 priority areas are CSO mitigation, access to the green space around the station, and reducing traffic congestion. This QR code that's listed on here in the corner there, I will bring you to a slide deck that we've shown to MBTA so far. Not much uptake yet, but it shows all of our community priorities in that slide deck. So we're now in the process of pushing MBTA to include the community in the visioning process from its earliest stages and not down the line once the developer has already been selected. One piece that I don't have on here that I think is worth mentioning is that while the MBTA station redevelopment is a critical opportunity to address a variety of issues, including the CSO outfalls, the MWRA, which is the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, has the legal responsibility to address these CSOs. The Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, which is also known as MEPA, has a review process that requires additional due diligence of projects within 1 mile of an environmental justice population, which I've mentioned before we are in right now. MEPA regulations require an assessment of any existing unfair or inequitable environmental burdens and related public health consequences to identified EJ communities. It is extremely important that MWRA act now for both long-term control as well as more immediate mitigation efforts. Whether it's the station redevelopment, long-term control plan, or simply another office development in the area, this community needs to be prioritized at every stage. Next slide. So we are primarily here to second the notion, excuse me, that CSO pollution must be fully remediated and that the current pollution is untenable. We fully support sewer separation as well as more immediate remedies such as green stormwater infrastructure and holding tanks. We encourage you first and foremost to join staff's campaign, and stay up to date with their emails. We also believe that getting to know the Alewife Reservation firsthand, its peaceful and quiet yet stinky and mucky waters, is a very important part of advocating for CSOs. And we welcome anyone to join our volunteer days. Finally, the MBTA redevelopment should involve community voices, thank you, and community processes. And if you're interested, please let me know and I can connect you to Maya, who is leading the charge on that. Next slide, which is just my thank yous. That's it. If anybody wants to get involved, you can go to our website. We have a volunteer sign up. And again, as the MBTA station starts to unfold, we'll, communicate with the public more about that. But so far, no one's taken the RFP. There's no bids, so it's kind of at a stalemate. So we'll see how it goes. But thank you.
I am back up to present. And Marja, we'll need the slide deck.
Here.
Great. Yeah, you can start. Yeah, start with the fish. Okay. So again, I'm Kristen Anderson from Save the Alewife Brook. And you can go to the next slide, please. So Alewife Brook is about 1.5 miles long, sometimes just half a foot deep in the shoals. It flows from MBTA's Alewife T station to the Mystic River and runs through DCR's Alewife Brook Reservation, which I think everybody in this room.
Take like a step back.
Yeah,
so
you can't find it all.
Yeah, Val can't see you. Just stand a little closer back to the screen.
Try again.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's easier. Couldn't see your face.
Sorry, I know the projection.
That's okay. Through DCR's Alewife Brook Reservation, which we've all been to, everyone in this room has been to, I think, it's a treasured public park. Next slide, please. Oh, that's a good slide. So during some storms, the brook overflows, sending untreated sewage floodwater into the park, the bike path, yards and homes of area residents. In 2023 alone, the brook flooded 5 times. Children biked through sewage. Joggers and walkers went through it, and we saw parents pushing baby strollers through untreated sewage floodwater. Schools also use this path for sports training. And these photos were taken during 2 different flood events in 2023. One by David Stoff, who's a member of Save the Alewife Brook, and one by Ann McDonald, who's also on the steering committee for Save the Alewife Brook. Climate change is making the situation worse with faster, heavier rains, more frequent and severe storms. Alewife Brook flows through very densely populated environmental justice neighborhoods, and about 5,000 people live in its 100-year floodplain. Next slide. This is a slide that was taken that MWRA presented to their board of directors in October. And E. coli counts are 10 times higher than EPA's regulated safe level at Alewife Brook for primary contact and 3 times higher for secondary contact. And what this slide really means is that Alewife Brook is dangerous because of bacteria in the sewage. People have gotten sick from exposure to Alewife CSOs. And a 2024 Boston University School of Public Health study found a link between gastrointestinal illness and CSOs, possibly linked to aerosolized particulates.
Calling it Alewife Brook.
Pretty good. It's on the nose.
That's okay. That's all right. So it doesn't just smell bad, it is a threat to health. Slide, please. The MWRA, this is a photograph of an image of MWRA's regional sewer system. These red lines are their pipes. And at Alewife Brook, MWRA owns two large pipes, one that was built in 1896 and the other in 1948, as well as the Alewife Brook pump station. Now, according to MWRA consultant AECOM, MWRA's regional sewer system cannot handle the volume of sewage during storms. When it rains heavily, the Deer Island treatment plant reaches capacity, Chelsea Creek Headworks backs up, and the Alewife Brook pump station becomes overwhelmed. Raw sewage from Cambridge and Somerville discharges into Alewife Brook. The system has no additional capacity. And it's not just MWRA's sewer system that doesn't have capacity, it's also the combined sewer system in Cambridge and Somerville that runs out of capacity. The MWRA's regional sewer system is not capable of handling current needs during some rainstorms, and that is because stormwater in the combined systems overloads the MWRA's sanitary sewer system. Next slide. Governor Maura Healey's 2025 biodiversity conservation goals explicitly calls to, quote, eliminate combined sewer overflows. Next slide, please. With MWRA funding, Cambridge and Somerville have already completed half the work at Alewife Brook. 7 out of 13 of the CSO outfalls were eliminated. There were 283 acres of sewer separation in Cambridge, which required construction of the Alewife stormwater wetland. So half the work is done, and now we just need the other half of the work done, and we need MWRA to step up to the plate to pay for it because this is a regional problem. The pipes are all connected. Next slide, please. This is terribly technical, but late last year, when MWRA floated their plan for Alewife Brook, they called for 0 CSOs in a 2050 typical year. That does not mean 0 CSOs. And if you look at it, these blue lines would be, those blue bars would be how much sewage would be dumped in the brook with that new plan if they did construct that plan. And Mass DEP rejected this plan. More worrisome is that MWRA is not explaining how much sewage will be discharged in larger future storms. So we need a solution to the problem, not half measures. MWRA is planning to continue dumping sewage unless the plan is called 0 CSOs in a 2050, 25-year storm. Next slide, please. Here is a chart of MWRA's Alewife Brook plans. And this green circled one, that's the one that has already been rejected. And that's the one that MWRA had floated. This is the lesser plan. And these are the two plans that are greater than the one that was rejected. And the price tag on those plans goes from $990 million to $1.7 billion. Next slide, please. But we have a better plan, and our plan is a lot cheaper. Right? Yes. This is the plan that we put together. Somerville is just really represented by an existing 90-page document from 2022 from Somerville's consultant Dewberry. They have a plan to close the outfall from that sends sewage from Davis Square into the brook. And then in Cambridge, all of these orange lines, those are the combined sewers. Those combined sewers could be separated. Our plan virtually eliminates Alewife Brook CSOs and up to a 2050-25 typical 25-year storm. And it completes that sewer separation in Cambridge and closes Cambridge CSO regulators. MWRA's sewer overflow gets a tank at the MBTA parking garage right there. And our plan includes green stormwater infrastructure. There's land here for another stormwater wetland. And our green stormwater infrastructure is really green. So it has social and health benefits and offsets climate change impacts. Our plan also calls on MWRA to dredge the stinky, toxic, cancerous CSO sediment that's in Alewife Brook. MWRA has been using Alewife Brook as an open sewer and never bothered to clean it. So if you're walking along this public parkland next to the brook during a drought when the water level is below the sediment, the unbearable smell is from MWRA's, Cambridge's, and Somerville's poopy excrement that is mixed with industrial cancer soup. It is terrible. And it should be cleaned out. Next slide, please. So MWRA must pay its fair share. Alewife Brook is what EPA refers to as a, quote, underserved and problem area, end quote, because of frequent flooding, malfunctioning regulators, that's the CSO thing.
It's amazing how coincidental.
Where CSOs are a major factor in water pollution and are responsible for a public health crisis and an increased health risk to environmental justice communities. This violates MWRA's mandate to protect public health by providing an adequate sewage collection, treatment, and disposal system. MWRA is in violation of its charter. Alewife CSOs are not in compliance with the Boston Harbor court case, which is still open. And according to the Boston Harbor court case's second stipulation, it means that MWRA must pay. Alewife Brook CSOs are a textbook example of a regional problem, and the problem will not be solved and the tide will not turn unless MWRA changes course. MWRA, again, is under court order. So MWRA has a funding mechanism to pay for eliminating sewage pollution in our rivers. And in the 1990s, households and businesses in Greater Boston paid for the Boston Harbor cleanup with sewer rate increases that enabled borrowing. Now that long-term debt is finally being paid off after decades, freeing up room in the MWRA's budget so new projects can be financed without another shock to water and sewer rates. In the next 10 years, MWRA will finish paying off about $2.1 billion in long-term bonds. And because this old debt is coming off the books, MWRA can issue $2 billion more in new bonds without raising rates significantly. This is happening just in time to fund sewage pollution elimination projects for Alewife Brook, Charles, and Mystic River. MWRA can clean up the sewage in Alewife, Mystic, and Charles and do it without raising rates. It will never be cheaper for the cities to get this work done than it is right now with MWRA's funding. So why aren't the cities taking advantage of this opportunity to solve the problem with MWRA's money? Thank you. So we open it to questions. All right, does anybody have questions or comments?
Well, you know, Kristen, I have a question.
You got to come up here.
If you
Anybody who wants to ask questions, just
can
come
you
up.
bring up the so-called technical slide of the MWRA one, the red and blue bar graph? Because I think it's important for people to realize where the target level, the typical year control in the second stipulation is on that bar graph.
You got to ask Marja.
Where's Marja?
She's online.
She's on the internet.
How do can you hear me, Marja? Yeah, can you bring up the bar graph that has the red and blue bars, the typical year and construction costs in the
From whose from whose presentation?
Kristen's presentation. It would have just been presented.
Okay, we'll go.
Do you?
Krista, can you identify, introduce David, or David, can you introduce yourself as your
No.
hearing committee for Save the Alewife Brook? and an
Oh.
attorney.
But I'm also an abutter to the Alewife Brook.
Yeah, you just introduced
That's a
yourself.
trifecta.
I'm David's, yeah, I'm a trifecta. I'm a person who lives downstream from CSO Alpels. I have a statutory right to participate
Go
in
stand,
the
yeah, stand, I guess, right,
long-term control plan.
stand right there.
If you stand on the.
That's
side
the
by side,
bar.
And you look at the camera.
You
and
see
tell
this
you-
line that says ten right here?
Thing, the whole
It,
thing.
it keeps
It's on
looking
wheels.
at him, it's okay,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
But
okay.
you see this line where the 10 is?
It's like a
The actual legal limit is
Oh, yeah.
7. So you see, all of these, like, this is all in violation, like the second stipulation level is 7. So when they say in existing conditions, that's like, that's so far over a line that's right there. I mean, that's the magnitude of the problem, like the reality of the discharges in the brook and the planned target values are so different. I'm on my 3rd CSO control plan now. In 1997, the plan would have had 4 discharges a year with just under 3 million gallons discharged. The current plan calls, the one we're living with calls for 7, and the updated plan, what do they say? 13 discharges a year and, almost 10 million gallons. And that's the target, as in like, this is 10 and this is what you really get. If it goes up to 13, how high are the red bars going to go?
Can I just clarify a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on up, Mike.
Come on up.
What this slide is, because it is jumping to slide. So what they have, so the red bars are existing conditions. The blue bars are, if we were to do the typical year control plan.
Yeah.
But these are the years from 2015 to 2024. So the typical year 2050 control plan that should eliminate sewage discharges in a typical year in 2050, we're gonna have a lot more and bigger storms,
Yeah.
is failing to work over the past 10 years.
Yeah, it's,
Correct.
well, in any event,
Yes.
but I think many of you, or at least I do, am starting to see the fiscal wisdom as a ratepayer, as an MWRA ratepayer, of actually solving the problem. Because what these control plans have amounted to are expensive band-aids that do not really address the problem. I think as a ratepayer, I expect the problem to be solved. And I'm sorry, Emily, I'm an unabashed Alewife advocate. And you can solve the problem in the Alewife by sewer separation. It's a much smaller problem than the problem in the Charles. And where I could see the wisdom of not digging up Back Bay or not digging up Harvard Square, I just can't see that Cambridge is unable to spread sewer separation construction around the Alewife area in such a way that it doesn't overly burden residents in Cambridge, but actually solves the problem once and for all and takes us out of the sort of CSO universe of regulatory capture, because frankly, that's what this section of the Clean Water Act represents. It's when the water utility is captured part of the program. I think that's fair to say. So I'm just gonna get that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to ask, in the slide that you showed of the green space around Alewife, that would be required for the much better plan that was cheaper. I'm wondering, I've heard that they want to develop that whole area, like Assembly Square Mall, put lots of buildings and put stores there. So would that be something that would stop them if they have development interests in mind from that plan?
If we could,
So messy.
well,
The-
pull up the
I've-
slide.
Marja might be doing it online, but okay, there we go. You can see, so those pink areas that you see, the polygons on there, are part of the Alewife Reservation. So they're public lands that would not be subject to development. Now, there is development proposed where you see that blue circle with the tank. That's where the current MBTA garage is. That area is proposed for redevelopment, but the MBTA has not currently gotten any qualified bids to redevelop. So that process is going to be ongoing.
But do you think that would be one reason why they wouldn't want to do it because of the development?
Potentially, but you could also solve that as a technical challenge of putting a tank and then building a building on top of the tank, or having the tank adjacent and having some pathways or parking or other use above the tank. There's a way you could design around it.
And we also have somebody in the chat.
Yes, we do have one person on Zoom.
That's Beth, that's all.
Hi, my name's Patrick. I live on Seagrave Road. My roommates and I are talking about like rents, so like in the Seagrave area though, because like some of the properties are owned by landlords though, and we're worried about rents being going up though, but property value going up, rents going up though as well in that area though, and like it and other properties. So we have to make sure though that the rents do not go up though as well. Yeah, if anyone has any input though, like
I mean, one thing I've been thinking about a lot, and I'm not an engineer, is now North Mass Ave is zoned for 12-story buildings, which should, now North Mass Ave is zoned for 12-story buildings, which should hopefully allow for more affordable housing, but we need the infrastructure. Is there, all that is still coming to the Alewife? I mean, that's all in the same sewer system. You know, it might be separated or not, but it's still additional weight. So I think these are so intertwined. That but I think your point that we have to pay attention to housing costs and especially for renters.
yeah, and that's why we have to vote for the question this year though about rent control this year though. Cost tenants union. Right at the here.
Hi, I live in the Alewife neighborhood, a couple of blocks away from the brook. And I believe
just a couple that way.
this way.
Yeah.
And I believe about maybe 20 years ago, when this started hitting the fan, they did put in a holding tank, I believe, where the little mini office is from IQHQ off of Whittemore. And I wonder, was that not adequate enough to handle? I mean, that was put in, I think, mainly because of flooding on Seagrave, which used to be, really bad, where the Alewife would overflow across Route 16. Route 16 would be closed. Now that was, only when there was like a 9-inch rainfall within 2 or 3 hours. But
it happened.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying, so that was one of the reasons that they put it in. I can't remember if it was 100,000 gallon holding tank. And I remember when they were building it. So, I mean, if they'd done it then, and if that helped solve the problem at that time, I don't see why they couldn't either put more tanks in or a tunnel or whatever.
Right.
So, and if not, on the side with the residences, then on the other side of Route 16, there's a strip of land there.
Yes.
That they could do that.
Thank you. Do you want to get the Malofchek?
Yeah.
On one.
Beth, do you want to unmute yourself?
Hi, Beth Malofchek. I live in Arlington. I'm with Save Alewife Brook. I'm a big fan of Kristen and David and everybody who works with them to try to get the bureaucrats to acknowledge the problem. It's incomprehensible to me that in 2026, Arlington, the Arlington community, East Arlington specifically, is exploited by the wealthier communities of Cambridge and Somerville as an open sewer of convenience. This is incomprehensible to me. I believe several people tonight have said it's illegal, doesn't meet the requirements of the suit that forced MWRA's hand to clean up Boston Harbor. So I believe passionately that we should keep the pressure on, that we need to be in the press as often as possible. There's We're under tremendous pressure as communities now in the Boston region to produce more housing. Tremendous pressure. I'm a town meeting member. So we've passed the MBTA plan in Arlington. There's going to be more building here, and there's going to be more building in Cambridge and Somerville. And we do not have the infrastructure to accommodate the additional toilet flushes or the additional stormwater. Why is the current leadership at MWRA not been changed? They're not coming up with a solution. They're maintaining the status quo. They're maintaining their perches and their sinecures. And when is Governor Healy going to meet with us? When is that going to happen? I really think we should be pushing for that. This is, I've said my piece. I thank everyone for their statements tonight and the organizations. I thank you all for your work. I think we need to be more frequently utilizing all avenues of the media. We need to get Kristen on Boston Public Radio and David Stoff on Boston Public Radio. I know some others of you have been on there, I heard. And we need this addressed. We need to force accountability. Bureaucrats only pay attention to bad press. And they'd like nothing more than for all of us to, go on home. So I think we keep the pressure on, and thank you all for your work. Thank you all for giving me the floor.
Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome.
Yes, come up.
Dropping me coming when I'm in the right spot. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. You gotta make some noise, make more noise.
Thank you all. My name is Anas. I live around the corner. Bit this way.
Yeah, that's good.
It's like a reverse game of Battleship. Thank you guys for putting this one together. It's great to see so much community engagement. 2 comments and then a question. My first comment is, it seems to me really important that communities are properly engaged in this process. And we've talked a little bit about environmental justice and some of the regulatory requirements to make sure that we do have proper representation. I just want to take a minute to remind us all that right now, there is a broader social and political context where many communities and community members don't feel comfortable being out and visible.
Yeah.
We are not more than a few hundred yards away from some of the most ethnically and racially diverse populations within Cambridge. I also just remind everybody that not everybody in Cambridge is welcome. So as we push forwards for and advocate for things, I would really like us as a set of community organizers to bear that in mind. And that sometimes we can push, perhaps myopically, for a solution that actually harms some of these communities. As a Cambridge resident and as a ratepayer, and as somebody who is brand new to understanding CSOs, and it wasn't until the proposed tank at Sherman Street was sort of put forward and that's going to affect me and my neighbors immediately, I've been really saddened and shocked to sort of see how half-measury it looks like the MWRA has been taking us. This doesn't feel like this is a small problem that is new to us. It also just stuns me that, in the year of our Lord 2026, okay, it's always been tough, that sitting in one of the most prosperous cities and one of the most prosperous countries in the world, that we are considering tolerating the piping of human waste into public waterways. It just shocks me. And so I think I am very, very supportive of anything which results in a definitive solution to the problem. And what I really want to avoid is this halfway situation where we do some mitigating things that actually harm local communities. And so as we work together, this is where we're going to be very focused on, those of us who live around the Sherman Street area. I guess my question is this, though. I mean, you guys have been in this fight for a long time now. What is it that we can do over the next few months? Like, what is the process? What is the way that we can actually drive change here? And what do each of us need to go away and do?
Emily,
Thanks. First, so I'm Emily Norton, Executive Director of the Charles River Watershed Association.
It's like, I think maybe right here.
Okay.
And then it's not in your
It's really fantastic that you all are here. So unfortunately, everyone in Cambridge and Somerville and Arlington can be really angry, but it's Cambridge, the city of Cambridge, the city of Somerville, and the MWRA, which has 2 million people, 62 communities. I could be off by, you know, some have water, some have sewers, some have both. And the MWRA is really sort of the big, you know, kahuna that's bringing Cambridge and Somerville along. So you're kind of, they're really the limiting factor. And the MWRA thinks that people outside this area, Needham, Newton, Reading, Melrose, I don't even have them all, but you know, dozens of communities, they think they don't care about any of this and don't want to pay for it. So unfortunately, you all are a victim of that. I think they're wrong. I think, and I live in Newton. I mean, over half the city councilors there signed a letter to the MWRA, more would have if another city councilor didn't work for the MWRA. That's a whole other story. Watertown, 100% of the councilors sent a letter. We need that all over because once, like, Brzezowski's not afraid of me. He's not afraid of CRWA. He's afraid of all of his ratepayers, though, and all those elected officials, federal, state who are on here, local. So the more that folks you know outside, all of you, your friends, your relatives here, but also contacts you have around the region can be weighing in, that's going to really surprise them. And that's going to really get their attention. But as long as they think that those folks don't want to pay more, then it doesn't even matter. We don't even know. They're not even telling us what it'll cost. They're just like, oh, they don't want to pay more. Well, how much? Oh, no, we're not going to tell you that. We just know they don't want to pay more. They're just not afraid of you. They're not afraid of us. We need to bring some fear to these folks. What we have, it's not a technological problem. It's not a fiscal problem. It's a political problem. That's what we need. So we are reaching out to Concoms, I guess they don't call them Girl Scout, but Scout groups, Rotaries, boards of health, like those local groups to weigh in. So they're going to be like, whoa, the governor for sure. This is an election year. I think it's fair to say that her EEA secretary, who chairs the MWRA board, was very influential in putting off this vote. So it can be discouraging. There's a lot of numbers and, you know, a lot of engineering, all that doesn't really matter. That's not the problem. The problem is they need to hear you be like, fix it. I don't want the poop. Just fix it. There's engineers who can solve this. They think they don't need to though right now. Hopefully that's helpful.
Oh, yeah, you go.
Well, it's okay. My question is just related.
Yeah,
to what Emily, you were saying. My name is Nihita. I live on Lagoon Street, close by here. It sounds like it's a political question. You mentioned, Kristen, I'm new to all this. So you mentioned a court order. You mentioned the Harbor Cleanup Act law related to that. So what legal pathways exist, if any? It doesn't sound like any of that, there's any teeth to those right now, which is why.
So not to sound a little cynical, but you may have observed around the country that we have laws that are not always enforced.
Yeah.
So we have the Boston Harbor lawsuit. This is still a part of it. You probably saw the news about the call for reclassifying the rivers and water bodies. So right now there's this Boston Harbor lawsuit. It's been going on for decades. They're not in compliance already. Now we're getting to the end of what's called the long-term control plan, and it gets super nerdy and it's great for lawyers. I understand the level of the non-lawyer, but we're about to embark on the next phase of the long-term control plan. And what they're calling for, their original call was, well, if we downgrade these water bodies to, and again, sorry for sounding boring or whatever, but under the Clean Water Act, the federal government tells states, set water quality standards. So in Massachusetts, that falls on DEP, and there's basically grades or ratings for all of our water bodies. And the Charles, let's speak about the Charles, I know the most about that. It's class B. And what that means is you're not allowed to dump CSOs. Well, then why are they dumping CSOs? Because there's an understanding that to solve this problem, it's huge infrastructure projects, billion-dollar projects. So you have some time. So you get a variance. The court has been allowing variances from the Clean Water Act standards since 1998. another 3-year variance, another 5-year variance. And basically what it's been, unfortunately, is massive crowds of people have not been involved in that. So it's us, Mystic, writing letters back and forth. The judge is freaking sick of this, to be honest. I've never even met him, but I can tell. Like,
State or federal judge?
federal judge.
Okay.
So the laws have been in place, but it's not enough. And if you read, there's a fascinating book that I'd recommend about the Boston Harbor cleanup and when it started. It wasn't just the lawsuits. It was on the cover of the Globe all the time. It was a presidential. People remember George H.W. Bush coming here and embarrassing Mike Dukakis. I don't think that was what killed the campaign. I think the tank was probably a little more influential. But it was talked about. No one's talking. That's what we need to do. We need to raise the noise. And then I do think, so my favorite quote, Julie's gonna be like, oh, here she goes. But Mahatma Gandhi, when the people lead, the leaders will follow. That is absolutely the case. We will get these laws enforced, but we just need to be making more noise. So it's there, but it's not enough.
Great, thank you.
And there's a meeting that we just found out about a few days ago on Thursday night that people could come to. And we will let you know about it. We will email you about it like tomorrow or the next day. They show up.
Meeting of the polluters?
Yes. Yeah, it's a Zoom meeting.
It's for the long-term control plan. Updates, public number 6, right?
Can I just do one last thing?
Sure.
You mentioned a plan that's much cheaper,
Yes.
$100 million. What has been the response from the, authorities?
Crickets. We haven't heard, we sent them the ideas and heard nothing back.
But again, what's happening is, do we solve it or do we not solve it? And MWRA says, no, we're not going to solve it. So
Right.
while they're thinking we're not going to solve it, what do they care what you have to say?
Right.
We need to move it to, it's not whether or not we solve it, it's how. This engineering solution, this engineering, maybe we pay for it like this, maybe. That's where we need to reframe the conversation, and that's where the noise comes in. In addition, CRWA and Mystic are working together. We've hired an economic analyst to look at, because they are gonna disclose what the rate impacts will be. I fully do not expect they will do it in a fair and transparent way. So we're gonna kick the tires on what their claims are. We've hired an engineering consultant as well to kick the tires on all of this, so that we are bringing that expertise, because otherwise, I mean, this stuff is really complicated. It's very easy to snow the public if you have all of the cards. So we're doing our best in partnership with all of you to blow that open, so that we can be, all right, they're claiming this, sort of trust but verify, maybe the only thing I agree with Ronald Reagan on. That is the attitude that we are taking toward this work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Just very quickly, my name is Owen Mortner. I am the council aide to Cambridge City Councilor Alewife, who wanted to be here tonight.
Please.
Sorry. Who wanted to be here tonight, but sadly couldn't make it due to a scheduling conflict. Just want to thank all the folks that organized this.
Can you say the name of the counselor one more time?
Alewife,
Yep.
Cambridge City Councilor. So, our office is aware of this issue, and, it is a regional issue, as Kristen highlighted. We are looking into kind of what we can do on a municipal level to get to a real solution that isn't just, a Band-Aid, but is more substantive. Because it's a regional issue that requires partnering with state agencies, our state delegation, others. But obviously, this is unacceptable on so many levels, not to mention just the legality, but also from an environmental justice and public health standpoint. So here to listen. We definitely want to help. Happy to set up meetings, brainstorm about what we can do, but we are committed to trying to get to a solution.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Eric Grunbaum, I grew up in this town and I had no idea we had open sewers in Cambridge. It's actually shocking. I live a few blocks that way on the other side of Jerry's Pond, and you smell it. I mean, and what you're smelling is what you think you're smelling. It isn't just a normal thing for you to walk down the street and smell It's really shocking to me, as a longtime resident and environmental advocate for this city, to see our city doing this in this day and age. And, I do think we need to raise the temperature, and it's a political problem. And one of the things I would really like to see is the public health committees, at both the city and town, and the state level. And actually, I talked to State Rep Marjorie Decker, who is, I believe, the co-chair of the State Public Health Committee or Commission. I forgot what the exact title is. Committee. It's the political side. I think that, I talked to her about this about 3 weeks ago at a campaign event she had. And then she said, text me after, which I did. And then I texted her again. I mean, I love Marjorie. I think she does great work. But I think she needs to hear from more people. And I think we need to get this in front of the public health committees and commissions of the town and state. And I'll enlist your help, state reps, Owens and Rogers and whoever else is on there. I can't see everybody's face, but I think that it's a health thing, and it's a health issue, and I think we need to that's a way to get it in the paper, and to give them the bad press that they need to be seeing. And I'll just finish with saying, like, they cleaned up Boston Harbor, right? But they left some of these waterways dirty, and they didn't finish the job. It's really about finishing the job. And Alewife is a saltwater fish, right? This was a tidal area until it was dammed up, I think, around 1905. We are part of the Boston Harbor. And Alewife and Charles and Mystic should be cleaned up, but just the way Boston Harbor was. And they spent the hundreds of millions or billions of dollars back then. Those bonds are now being paid off. There's money. It's not necessarily going to be a rate shock. I trust what you're saying, Kristen, that we can do this without a big rate shock. But even if we have to pay a little bit more to clean up these waterways, we should. And I'll just finish by saying there's also a rainy day fund in the state, which has, I believe, about $8 billion. Well, how poetic. Like, when does the sewage go into the waterways? On rainy days. So let's use some of that rainy day fund, or let's use some of the bonding capacity of MWRA. And let's raise the temperature. Let's get whoever knows anybody, if anybody has a relationship with State Rep Decker or other people on the state level committee, let's do that. And in the towns, let's do it as well at that level. Because I think that public health is ultimately is going to get people's attention. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, go.
Camera.
It'll find you. Yeah.
Hi, I just wanted to say, if anybody has any questions or was confused by anything, it's a really confusing issue, and don't assume it's just you. There's so many contradictions that it's kind of insane. I mean, it's just totally boggles the mind that this is happening. As somebody said, in 2026, about the payment issue and the question of, environmental justice, but also minding about costs for people of different economic situations. We have suggested over and over that is the community who's been working on this a tiered rate structure for ratepayers, so that people who can't afford to pay increases don't pay them. So it's not like there aren't options for them. This happens with utilities in California, for instance. I would also just caution people when you're hearing people either from the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority or anybody in the state representing them, or if you're listening to our wonderful city manager or our wonderful Department of Public Works. I'm a Cambridge resident, and I think Department of Public Works is awesome. And I think all the engineers within it want to solve this problem. But if you ever hear from the city manager or the public works departments in Cambridge or Somerville, they are speaking as defendants in a court case, and they must say, we are not guilty. There is no problem. So you're just take everything that they tell you about what's happening and the state of affairs with a big grain of salt and translate it. Because even if the individual engineer wants to solve the problem, they are speaking to you as a mouthpiece of a defendant in a legal court case where they are very very guilty right now of dumping shit in our brook. And it makes me ill, like it makes me really, I walk in the Alewife Brook Reservation most days, I walk around the brook and I wonder if I'm making myself sick. And that is not okay. I totally agree. The public health at all levels, municipal and state, need to get in here and deal with this, like yesterday. So, my name is Gwen. I am a North Cambridge resident, and I'm ready for them to separate the sewers. I've lived right next to a sewer separation. It's a pain in the ass, briefly, and then it's done. And our streets, I live right near Mass Ave, constantly ripped up by Eversource. All the time, for years, they come and they go, and they come and they go, and there's still a hole, and the bike bus lanes are all disrupted. Just do the sewer separation. Do it now. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Mark DeCourcy. I'm a legislative aide for State Representative Dave Rogers. This is an issue that our office has worked on for many years and, advocating to the MWRA, and repeatedly you hear it's too expensive and it's too complicated. And, as we've seen today, that's just not an acceptable answer to be had. And so we had a productive meeting on Friday with Save the Alewife Brook, and we're very appreciative to Save the Alewife Brook and the local watershed organizations for, creating the advocacy effort on this issue. And I know, we're looking forward to continuing conversations on keeping that pressure on the MWRA, that this is not an acceptable thing to continue going, and they need to, release plans that push for the highest level of CSO. So I appreciate all you guys coming here, and if you ever need to get in touch with our office, please reach out. And thank you guys for coming.
I had a couple questions, actually. I was looking to get a little clarification on. And they're related questions. One is, what is the division of responsibility between MWRA and the cities of Cambridge and Somerville? I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly that the city of Cambridge owns the sewers, and if they were to do sewer separation, the city of Cambridge would be responsible for that work, but that MWRA would help to pay for it. Is that sort of the correct understanding of the responsibilities? And then my second question, which is related, is I'm trying to understand how the city of Cambridge's plan for the CSO overflow tank kind of fits into all of this. I'm kind of getting the impression that the city of Cambridge is kind of pushing this on its own because it doesn't think anything else is going to happen. And I just kind of want to understand if that's sort of the logic behind building the tank is that they don't think they're going to get anything from MWRA, so they're just going to go ahead and do what they can do. And yeah, if I could get any kind of clarity on the sort of politics there, that would be helpful.
That tank's in the long-term control plan, but it's already in progress.
They used to be separate defendants, and then they joined together to create the long-term control plan.
Is Gene here?
Gene is hiding that.
Gene should address this because you are with MWRA legal and stipulations written, so you are the other.
All right, so I present Gene Benson on steering committee of Save the Alewife Brook.
Hi, everybody. Excuse me. The cities and the towns own their own sewer systems. So Cambridge owns all its sewer systems. It owns its CSOs. Same thing with Somerville. Under the early part of the court case, MWRA was completely responsible for all of the work, paying for all of the work, even though a lot of it was done by Cambridge and a little bit by Somerville. That's gotten mixed up with what's going to be the new permit for the Boston Harbor outfall and what's going to happen with the court case. And so it's a little bit unclear, at least to me, what the payment responsibility is gonna be. As Kristen pointed out, MWA was responsible for paying for all of the work for the current cleanup, and it hasn't met that. So at a minimum, they should be paying to get to the level that it hasn't gotten to at this point, at a minimum. And there's a good argument to be made, as Kristen said, a lot of it is it's, you know, undersized system, so they should be paying even more. But our understanding is the two cities and MWA are negotiating, and we don't know who's winning that negotiation, and we may find out when they have this meeting on Thursday in terms of who's gonna pay what amount. And the other thing to understand is this is gonna be like a 15 or 20-year project to get this done. So it's not like the whole thing has to be paid next year. They'll bond it out over 20 or 25 years so that the payment, you know, takes place over a longer period of time. It's like those of you who own, you know, your own place where you live, you don't pay the entire amount at once. You take out a mortgage and you pay over time, however hard it is. That's the same way it works with these projects. So that's all I can tell you up to this point.
But don't Somerville have financial responsibilities, like the stormwater wetland is Cambridge?
Well, all right, once they separate the sewage, right? Then what do you do with the stormwater? Well, that's what that stormwater wetland is for. Then you send the stormwater, that stormwater wetland, it cleans it, hopefully it percolates into the ground. It helps the plants grow there, and it never actually gets to go into Alewife Brook. If there's a huge storm, then there's an overflow into the brook. Yeah, Cambridge would have to pay for that. And maintain it afterwards. So there are clearly gonna be some costs to the two communities along the way.
And the Charles, can I just chime in on the Charles?
Yeah.
In the Charles, the majority of the overflows are owned and directly managed by MWRA. So those would be their responsibility, basically.
And the pump station and Deer Island, which have capacity issues, are also MWRA property.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a combined sewer overflow themselves in the Alewife Brook, the first one. Behind the T is.
Yes, and
Owned by MWRA and include Belmont Sewage.
And MWR 003 is a really interesting case because the only reason it's a CSO is because it receives combined sewerage from Cambridge and Somerville, and that's the only reason it's not completely illegal. And if Cambridge removed Cambridge and Somerville, I don't think everybody appreciates, but the Cambridge and Somerville systems are interconnected in the Alewife. They join up at Mass Ave, so actually Davis Square sewage from Davis Square flows downhill to Cambridge, goes along sewer and Mass Ave, and there's two convenient overflows in Alewife where the build would flow out. And that system, as it exists, could be separated. And that would be the end of the sewage getting into the roof problem, but you still would need to deal with the stormwater. There is no consensus right now about what level you would have to not only treat that stormwater at, but throttle it to keep it from changing the peak flow of the brook. We're all used, in this room, we're all used to the idea of climate change and like the 2050 FEMA floodplains and, you know, the work that Massachusetts does to have people, developers look at maps. But generally FEMA, the federal agency, is way behind. And, you know, the maps that they're using have much lower flood elevations. So I think maybe rightly so, the cities say, wait, if we have to throttle it to a level of, you know, the 100-year storm on the 2005 FEMA map, 2004, that's a lot lower than we know it's going to be. That's a question, a true political question about how infrastructure will treat in climate change driven flood elevations that hasn't been answered. So, you know, it's the frontier here.
And could you also address the overflow tank, the Sherman Street project?
You guys, overflow tank, I've been waiting to talk to you because there's something you should be investigating and saying, CSO control plans are supposed to prioritize outfalls that are near public water supplies. And even though the regulator is all the way back up at Sherman Stream, the discharge is really close to Fresh Pond. And that's a real reason, a regulatory hook about why that area should be sewer separated. And I'm sure Cambridge DPW has their reasons, and they'll say what they're doing is great, and they're taking care of all the issues that might possibly threaten Fresh Pond. But I would say be really skeptical of that, because, you know, we don't know what the, you know, we don't know. And maybe we should leave it for the people of 2050 to know. But we should take a good, you know, hard look at whether that really can, you know, whether it's really a great idea to pump your sewage overflow past your drinking water supply.
In fact, what are you, what exactly was your question about the Sherman Street tank? I think a bunch of people here might have gone to a meeting about the Sherman Street tank.
Yeah. One of us lives right there on Bella Circle, where Jose's Mexican restaurant was. Where they're gonna be putting in, it seems, the largest such sewage tank in the Boston area. If I'm remembering correctly, and you're a little bit concerned about a huge ocean of storage.
You know,
right in the middle of a residential area.
Do you know why it's there? It's because, so you saw the map and you saw that there's the red dot behind the Alewife T station. The combined sewer overflow, the pipe that has poop coming out of it, the sewage in question is right in that area near Sherman Street. The regulator, the device, the take, you know that, right? It's the same sewage. So the point is to stop the sewage and store it there so that it doesn't flow into the down those pipes, down by the Alewife and into the brook, to stop it and store it there. But you mean in terms of safety and so forth? Well, that might be a question for, like, you have such storage tanks for the Charles. Is it an issue when they're near residential neighborhoods? Are they just a big, it's like all of the tanks that are under occupation?
I mean, they put them all around Cambridge, so I feel like they bought this land a while ago and didn't tell any of us they had that plan for it. So that's my other question is, when did DPW decide this was gonna be a storage tank?
They're in the process of working that out without engaging in community and saying, in your backyard, how do you feel about having, you know, an oceanic size tank of sewage that's gonna be dug 30 feet down in the middle of a residential neighborhood?
Densely populated.
Densely populated.
That is what was done in South Boston. So there is a example there.
And also under the Vassal Street, the old Tobin School,
I believe that's a stormwater.
Is that, maybe it's
Would it
just.
bother you if that tank was a stormwater thing?
Yeah, I think the issue, sorry.
Not separate.
On that tank, we put the hand up, I think this is maybe an issue that you guys don't want to take up too much time. Here are the three issues that we stand up with that. One.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd like
The people online can't.
Oh, the people. Can they not hear?
Yeah. No, sorry.
My wife's texting me asking me to be back. We're griddling cabbage, it's like my favorite meal. Okay, the Sherman Street tank, those that live locally to it, there are three things that concern us about it. I mean, the first is really about process. It has happened under the cover of darkness. It feels like this is the way you depose the head of state of a South American country, rather than how you consult with the public about a major infrastructure project. Despite people knocking on doors, coming to speak to my neighbors before we moved into the area, saying, hey, we've bought this land, but we'll talk it through with you in a public process. On record, the city manager, councillors, the first that anybody heard of it was 3 days before the public meeting in December. Really interestingly, by the way, and Chris, thank you so much for helping with the forensic research we've had to do. The first time you see a little star on the map on that location is actually December 2024. And actually you guys, both so the Alewife Brook, Charles River, were engaged in meetings where they presented that to you back in September. So, the first thing I think my neighbors are rightfully upset about is knocking about us without us, unless you're abutting that particular tank site. The second thing is actually, that isn't just kind of pure virgin, unproblematic land that they want to dig 30 feet deep into. Right, so if you know the area, right, it was all clay pits and then city dump. Bellis circles Sherman Street, and just going north of Sherman Street, east of Sherman Street, was actually an unexcavated area of clay. So there's a little island of Boston blue clay that everybody's houses sit on. These houses are former works cottages with predominantly stone and mortar foundations. And fun fact about Boston blue clay, it transmits vibration phenomenally well. I mean, like really, really well. So that when you are pile driving into clay to put down the retaining walls to your tank, the likelihood is you are going to damage people's foundations. You are. And you can try and put monitoring in, you can try and have triggers that stop it, but those triggers are usually like a post hoc thing, like, oops, sorry, we cracked your foundation. We stopped the jackhammering the next day. So people are concerned about that. But the third thing I think we're also concerned about is, like, again, this is potentially deeply polluted land. We're thinking arsenic, lead, and it is, the city's already acknowledged that if they do this excavation, they would have to take this soil and treat it off-site. So let's get back to environmental justice for a second. And let's talk about the community that's around there. Let's talk about the Walden Square development. Let's talk about communities that right now aren't comfortable turning up to meetings like this and advocating for themselves. And let's talk about digging up earth that could expose those families and those children to pollutants. So this is a community that is actually, when I moved into the neighborhood, I was told by my neighbors we're YIMBYs. This has been, land's been bought. We're quite happy for it to be used for pro-social circumstances. To operate in a way that takes a bunch of community-minded, very progressive thinking Cambridge neighbours and has them concerned for their property, for their safety, the safety of their communities, for the health of their community, means that something's gone really badly wrong. So again, as we advocate for solutions to resolve this, I don't think we can just say, hey, we put big tanks in the ground before. You have to put big tanks in the ground in Cambridge, this close to people's properties, next to 18th century foundations, where we've got potential toxic pollutants in the soil. So all that we're asking for is some transparency, some accountability, and some engagement. I think there's a clear alignment actually between what that neighborhood wants and what my colleagues, my friends, my neighbors in Arlington want as well, which is like a definitive solution. So I think that's the Sherman Street tank area. What, again, I just ask of you guys who are advocating for the addressing of the solution, please don't glibly just say tanks must be good, right? Like, we need to be as nuanced and as thoughtful about this. You guys have lived with the experience of people not being thoughtful about what happens to your communities, to your neighborhoods. I think we can come together as a set of advocates and actually do the right thing. Hold our politicians to account, hold the WRA to account, and get to a solution that really works for our environment and for our communities.
Did Public Works? Did Public Works have any answers to these questions, or had you not gotten to the point when that meeting happened at the last minute?
I mean, if you were at that meeting, you
What do you want to make a statement?
you saw that what they basically did was they ran the meeting in a way that there wasn't the time to engage in the depth. They didn't give any instance warning. There was no Zoom ability. There was no translational ability. Again, I'm no lawyer. I'm looking at playing on television. But if I think about the environmental justice regulations that we've heard about today, I'm pretty sure that the way they prosecuted that community engagement doesn't get the bar on that one. So no, we haven't. And we're in a position right now where we're trying to advocate for, we're almost begging and pleading just for a seat on the CSO commission. I think we'll move forwards. Michael asked a question about this at City Council on December 22nd, when the councillors spoke up in support of it and said, yes, that sounds like a good idea. The Commissioner for the Public Works was conspicuously silent in response to that. So we have a petition of our own, just to ask if we might be listening to, if anybody is interested. Jen has some flyers. We've got a website where we can articulate what our concerns are, what we're trying to do. But I cannot stress this enough. This is a community that genuinely wants a resolution to CSOs. This isn't something that should be happening in this day and age.
Thank you. I think so. Oh, there's one more person online, Paul Lipsky, who wants to ask a question. And then
I was hoping.
oh yeah, you come up quickly, and we'll do Paul Lipsky first.
Yeah, Paul, if you want to unmute and just jump in.
Yes.
There's a public meeting for the CSO control coming up on Thursday at 6 o'clock. I put a link to where you can sign up in the chat. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
So I've been struggling to understand this a little bit too, and I really thought initially, when I started to hear about it, it was like, oh, there's definitely some people being overdramatic about staking blood or whatever, but then you look into it a little bit more, and you're like, no, really, they're literally just dumping sewage in the river, like right next to my house. I live at the corner of Whittemore and Seagrave, right? So it's like right across from the folks in Arlington that are getting this washed into their houses. And if there was any large flood event, this would absolutely wash into my house where my in-laws live, my 2 children, my husband, you know, all of this would be right literally in my house. And what's really funny is, you know, we've done a bit of work on the house, and the city of Cambridge, you know, made us hire a crack team of plumber people to like inspect every inch of our sewer line from our house to the street. So they think, you know, taking on our responsibility as good citizens to make sure that everything is in working order in our house. But then to come and find out that literally I could shit in a bucket, walk across the street and dump it in the river. And that's effectively the kind of service that they think is okay to give to us and to say, this is our plan for the next 50 years. And so I'm like, well, why did I even put in another bathroom? I could just, you know, take care of this myself in exactly the same way. That's part of their plan. So for me, that's the part where I'm like, this can't be real. Like, whatever, I'm not understanding something, but maybe I was understanding it correctly. It's weird.
Thank you.